Now, US President Donald Trump says that he ordered the deployment of 2 nuclear submarines in response to threat from former Russian President Medvedev, who had warned of a war between the United States and Russia after Trump's sanctions ultimatum.
Oh, yeah, well, we had to do that. We just have to be careful. And a threat was made, and we didn't think it was appropriate, so I have to be very careful. So I do that on the basis of safety for our people. A threat was made by a former president of Russia, and we're going to protect our people.
Trump's warnings come as Medvedev referenced Russia's nuclear capabilities, including the dead hand system, a Cold War-era automated nuclear strike system. Meanwhile, Viktor Vodolazky, first deputy chairman of the State of Duma Committee on CIS Affairs, Eurasian Integration and Relations with Compatriots, said there are significantly more Russian nuclear submarines in the oceans than American ones, and that the ships that US President Donald Trump ordered to be redirected to the appropriate regions have long been under control. He added that Russia does not need to respond to the US leader's comment. As Trump and Medvedev traded barbs, Putin signaled no change in Russia's stance on Ukraine. Despite Trump's August 8th deadline, playing down Trump's demand for a ceasefire, he said all disappointments come from excessive expectations.
Of course, the direct Russia-Ukraine talks in Istanbul is a positive point. As for any disappointments on anyone's part, all disappointments come from excessive expectations. This is a well-known general rule. But in order to approach the resolution of the issue peacefully, it is necessary to conduct a thorough conversation, and not in public, but calmly, behind closed doors, starting with the negotiation process.
Putin said Russia wants a lasting and stable peace in Ukraine, adding that Moscow's conditions for peace remain unchanged.
I repeat once again, we need a long-lasting and stable peace on a good foundational basis that would satisfy both Russia and Ukraine and ensure the security of both countries.
Meanwhile, the Ukrainian capital Kyiv observed an official day of mourning on Friday, a day after a Russian drone and missile attack on the city killed 31 people, including 5 children, and injured more than 150. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky visited the site of a Russian attack in Kyiv and called strong sanctions against Russia.
So it is very important that the prospect of new sanctions, strong sanctions, has now begun to put pressure on Russia, and not only against the aggressor state itself. All Russian finances, every scheme that fills the Russian budget, must be targeted by the world. Only this will convince Moscow to genuinely work for peace. Ukraine is grateful to the United States, grateful to Europe and all our other friends around the world who strive for peace. Ukraine is ready to work as swiftly as possible for the sake of peace. We all clearly understand what steps are needed.
Now, for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report. Listen to this.
In a bold escalation, President Trump announced that he has ordered 2 U.S. nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines to be deployed to regions near Russia. President Trump says the move was triggered by highly provocative statements from former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, now Russia's Security Council deputy chair, who on social media warned U.S. President Donald Trump about Russia's semi-automated retaliatory nuclear system known as the, quote, dead hand, telling Trump, remember how dangerous the fabled dead hand can be. In a post on Truth Social, Trump warned the rhetoric could lead to unintended consequences, so he moved submarines just in case. Meanwhile, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff will head to Russia as part of a broader push for a ceasefire in Ukraine by the president's August 8th deadline. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
All right, for more on this, we're now being joined live by Lieutenant Colonel Daniel L. Davis. He's a military expert and host of the Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. Lieutenant Colonel Davis, thank you so much for joining me on World DNA. It's always a pleasure to have you with us.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Now, sir, let's begin with what's happening here. Donald Trump says he ordered the deployment of 2 nuclear submarines. how real do you think is the specter of an all-out war between the United States and Russia? Do you think this is just Trump's usual tactic from his playbook, where he is really trying to test the limits of his adversaries or even allies and trying to dictate the terms, and Russia is not giving in here?
I don't even think it's that far. I mean, this is frankly two gentlemen who were having a spat back and forth on social media. President Trump, Dmitry Medvedev. There's also been some back and forth between Senator Lindsey Graham and Dmitry Medvedev. So he's kind of trolling. Medvedev is kind of trolling these people. But look, I mean, if you're going to say there's going to be a deadline on the country of Russia, a nuclear power, and you're going to put sanctions on them if they don't do what you want them to do, I mean, you certainly can't expect them to do nothing or say nothing in response. And so far, Russia hasn't done anything other than to say, our conditions have not changed. They're not changing because of this deadline at the national level. The other thing that's important to understand is Dmitry Medvedev, he's not even the chairman of their National Security Council. He's the deputy chairman. He has no power to do anything. So for Trump to say he's responding to a threat, as I read it, there was no threat in there, because the dead hand issue, to understand, is only if Russia is attacked by nuclear weapons and then they have a retaliatory process. So even that was only going to be if the U.S. attacked them with nuclear weapons first. There was no attempt to say that Russia was going to attack the United States. That's important to understand.
All right. Now, it's interesting that you said he's trolling the U.S. president, because, of course, we have heard these statements that the U.S. president makes, and it almost seems that Russia seems to be playing along at this point, because we have heard comments from Russia before this as well, saying that, you know, we are really used to working under sanctions. They seem very unfazed by the threats that have come from the U.S. President Donald Trump. They don't seem to really care about the ultimatum that has been put on them. You mentioned as well that the stance remains unchanged. That being said, what is Russia's stance here, and to what end is it willing to fight for it?
Well, Russia has not changed. And in that same interview that you showed part of there a minute ago, President Putin said, listen, what I said in June of 2024 is the same thing I'm saying now, is the same thing they've been saying ever since then, which is they want the core causes of what they believe to be responsible for this war to be addressed. They're not going to just do a 30-day unconditional ceasefire, which is what this deadline is supposed to be on the 8th of August. And there's no chance that Russia is going to do that. They've been unequivocal about that, and they've also been unequivocal about they're willing to have conversations, they're willing to have discussions, but only in the context that the conflict on the ground will continue on without change until there's some kind of a resolution on what they view as the end, the resolution of the core issues. If there is no resolution to that, then Russia will win on the ground what they cannot get in negotiations, and they have the capacity and they have the time to do it. And that's what we need to understand on the Western side, I believe.
All right, they do have the capacity and they do have the time. Two important things to note here. Also, T-minus 6 days to the August 8th deadline. Come August 8th, how do you think things will unfold going forward?
Listen, the Russians, I think they mean it when they say that they're not even paying attention to this. They know that if Trump makes good on his threat and brings more sanctions, Russia's like, we're used to that. We get it. We're not going to do anything different. I think we're in a big surprise if we think that we can put additional tariffs on India or on China or on Brazil, and that somehow that would cause them to flinch away from supporting Russia or buying their oil. I don't see any chance that that would happen. I think it would be worse for the West if we tried to put those sanctions on. I mean, we're already having a difficult enough time negotiating tariff deals with just regular economic deals. Now, you add that on top of it, that's a lot more trouble for the United States, and I honestly just don't think that Trump is going to go that far, or if he does, it'll be short-lived. But the bottom line, it will have no military impact on this war. Russia will continue with its movement.
All right, Russia completely seems to be employing the grey rock method here when it comes to Trump's threats and all of the statements that he has been making. Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA with your insights on this. Always a pleasure to have you with us, as I've said earlier. Thank you so much for your time.
You bet. My pleasure.